Hi guys, Alan Beebe here at TrueAiki.com. I thought we'd start here today so we can kind of theoretically go over what we've covered so far. Um, Tandokudosa 0, you could do it standing, you could do it sitting. You want to maximally express the solidity of the ground up. You want to maximally express the gravity coming down being expressed through your tissues, and that creates yin yang in your body. And you want to work on being able to support yourself with those powers. Okay, number one. Our guy is kneeling on the floor. I'm gonna just use one leg here. Kneeling on the floor, and the legs want to open like this equally. Well, what happens is this leg is on the ground. It tries to open into the ground, and it lifts this guy up, all right? But what you can see with the lower leg and the upper leg here, I'll just stick them over here, is that the lower leg is trying to rotate. Okay, that's Aiki 2. The upper leg is trying to rotate. That's Aiki 2. The lower leg is rotating and coming into the ground, so it can't move, right? But it's trying to go here. This is trying to come up. So you got yin-yang forces being expressed in that leg. The upper leg, let's make ourselves an upper leg. Okay, so here's my lower leg. The upper leg goes like this, right? Well, it's trying to rotate in space as well. Aiki number 2. Thing is, it's attached, right? So it's anchored here, so as it rotates, it causes it to roll forward. All right, so it's interesting because we have on that upper leg, you have a force going this way and a force going this way, right? You also have the node of the axis of that rotation is actually rising. So if this is the ground, the axis is actually rising. So you got a force that's going forward. Okay. And you also have a force that's going upward. So I'm starting here, and you can see now that it's risen. So I have rotational force here. I have a forward force. I have a rising force as well. Okay, that's in the lower leg. I'll show you again. So here's my thigh. Here's my lower leg. Here's my thigh. It's opening up. Let's add a body. Now the interesting things, these are, this segment is a little shorter than this segment, which is pretty close to what we'd have in our body. This segment's equal to this segment. That's not what we have in our body. This segment should be a little bit longer. This is your upper body. Twice as long, too much. But anyway, we'll pretend. So center of mass, you got this tetrahedron thing is over the center. This lower leg tries to rotate. This upper leg does rotate, and then the upper body rotates as well. So so now we have, the upper body rotating, but it happens to be anchored to the upper leg. So as the upper leg rotates, the bottom of the upper body rotates. And so this side too, your upper body, is the node is going backwards and rising as well. Okay, so you have equal and opposite directions this way as well. So that's in Tandokudosa number 1. While that is happening, we move the tissues of the body. So I want this tissue to actually be supinating around the leg as it opens this way. There's going to be a circle that goes this way. When I come down, it comes this way with the upper body. Tandokudosa number 2 starts out the same way, but then because of its posture, this is turning this way. This one's now going to turn opposite. All right, so now we have this interesting splitting of the body. This instead of a double, which we had in Tandokudosa number 1. So this is turning this way. This is turning this way. This causes the hips to want to turn horizontally. So it wants to turn horizontally, and then I take my upper body. This isn't quite accurate. Our tissues, we have this basin of our pelvis down here, and this is all soft tissue. So this can move, okay, and it's going to actually want to stay straight. So it's staying straight against the pelvis that wants to move. So I got the tissue. This is pulling part of it this way. This wants to go this way. This is staying here. So I have, as it's coming up, I have a spiral. All right. So let's take a look at my ruler again. And what the pelvis is wanting to do is rotate this way. And then because this was a gift, I'm going to use this as my model. If my thorax was to move with my pelvis, you would have a one-to-one relationship, but it doesn't. What happens is this turns and this tries to stay here. So what you can see is they wind up rotating against each other. Another way of replicating that would be saying, okay, I'm going to keep my hips the same, and I'm going to turn my thorax. All right. In this case, we let the hips move and we keep the thorax the same. It winds up being the same. Okay. You have two possible movements. Okay. So what do you have? Tandokudosa number 1, kind of the prominent thing that's happening in that is this opening and closing movement. And it's not just opening and closing, this is a rotation, it's a vertical rotation, so it's showing heaven and earth. On Tandokudosa number 2, we start having this kind of a rotation in there. So now we have fire and water. So you have the cross of Aiki now happening in Tandokudosa number 2. Of course, it existed in Tandokudosa number 1 as well. It just wasn't quite as visible. So everything that you could have, Aiki 1, Aiki 2, Aiki 3, they're all in Tandokudosa number 1. It just becomes a little bit more explicit in Tandokudosa number 2. In Tandokudosa number 3, what we're going to do is take that half, the Kiza posture, this half standing, half sitting posture, and we're going to take it all the way to standing. Okay. So what we have is sitting, sitting up, halfway standing. Today would be standing. So we're reconstructing movement from the ground up. And this is necessary to learn how to do movement in a completely different way. If you're doing this the same way that you always have done it, then unless you are somehow naturally imbued with doing Aiki, which is it's natural movement. It occurs in nature, obviously, but it's anti-intuitive to human beings. We don't move this way. We like to move in opposition. Okay, let's look at the arms really quickly as well before I go out. The shoulders, we want to keep the shoulders down so we don't let this happen, all right? The humerus bone wants to stay attached to the thorax, and it stays attached to the thorax because it's attached to the thorax. But if I go like this, the things that attach it let go, and it's no longer attached in the same way. So I want that to be down. I want my scapula to be flat in the back, and they stay flat. They can rotate around this way, but they stay flat to my back. I already pointed out where you want your elbows to be. It's an easy, quick and easy way of measuring that is going right here. Okay. My elbow hasn't changed. Okay. And from here, I can rotate one way. Okay. Let's just look at the humerus. This is about as far, I'm really tight up here. This is about as far as it rotates backwards. Keeping my scap down and my shoulder down, this is about as far as it rotates forward. Most people will go, oh, I can rotate my arm way back here. I can rotate my arm way over here. Not without unseating the shoulder. And so that becomes very important. You want to be able to do that, keep that seated. All right, so this is being pulled down by the tissues that attach it front and back. All right. So I want to know how I can maximally torsion this part. Then this can go a little bit further. All right. In Tondoka Dosa number 2 and number 3, actually number 1 as well, I now counter rotate my hand. This is still going that way. Okay, my hand now is going the opposite way. So you have this shiboru kind of an effect within your own body. Same goes if I turn. So this is the head of my bicep. It's pointing out this way. When I turn my hand over, it's still pointing out this way. Okay. When I turn this, now the head of my bicep is about here. Okay. So I've turned it about as much as I can, and I could turn that just a hair bit more. Okay. And then this counter rotates. So you see the head of the bicep still there, and this is counter rotated. All right. That's the way we use our hands in Tandokudosa number 2 and number 3. One will be rotating this way, and one will be rotating this way. Or I can do the opposite. One's rotating this way, and the other is rotating this way. All right. Later on, we'll get into how that even occurs. You want to have the greatest amount of power. These are not very powerful. This connected to the ground is very powerful. These can communicate a lot of power though. So what I want to do later on is I'm originating the movement of that rotation through the tissues of my body around my spine, and that torques on the muscles that are surrounding the humerus, okay? And it spirals out. There's more inertia in here because there's more mass, okay? And then the rotation gets smaller and smaller as it comes out here, so it speeds up. So it's carrying less mass, but it's carrying more speed, all right? And then when we deliver, there's a way that we can talk about later on as well, that you get this maximal transfer of momentum, which we want as well. But for now, just work on keeping those shoulders seated, not popping them out. When you turn this stuff, be really conscious of what you're doing in the back of your body, your scapula. Don't let them pop out at all. That's a big no-no, okay? So that's what I'm going to say about the arms right now. You see them in Tandokudosa number 2 and Tandokudosa number 3. Okay, so let's go to the dojo and take a look.